this video we're going to explore calculating the standard deviation written in Swift. The standard deviation is a measure of the amount of variation or distribution between the values. So a low standard deviation will indicate that the values tend to be close to the mean, whereas a high standard deviation indicates that the values are spread far out. So it's got a wider range. So the first thing we'll need to do is to calculate the mean. As we know, that's just the average, which you can easily do by summing up the column and dividing by the number of items within our list. From there, for each number, we need to calculate the distance from the distance of that number from the mean. And then for each number, we need to square this distance. We sum all these values up, and then finally we take the square root. So there's a few steps involved in calculating the standard deviation. It's often a number which is calculated and we don't think about how we actually calculate it, but we're going to create an algorithm which is going to do this using Swift. So in Swift Playgrounds, we're going to continue on our extension from the previous videos. Again, if you haven't seen these videos, please do make sure that you look back, because we're going to be using some of these again. So we're starting off with step 1. We need to calculate the mean. We can do this with our extension that we created before. So that's using that extension which we created in a previous video. Then moving on to step 2, we need to add all the numbers together. To do this, we can use reduce. So the reduce method will just add up all the items within that list. Remember, we need the total average. So we need to calculate this slightly differently because we want to check the distance from the mean for each of the values. Then on to step 3, we're going to square root this value. If the square root function isn't available for you, remember to import the foundations library. That's where you'll find square root. Okay, so see, I can't find square root in scope, so I'll need to import the foundations library. Once you have this imported, we can now test to make sure that our range is correct. Sorry, our standard deviation is correct. So we can do this in a similar sort of way. Our extension is now available, which will make it a lot simpler to use it in the future. In the future, I'll also show you how you can hide code within Swift Playgrounds, just so that you can neaten up your code and just rely that that library that you created is always available. So now my code is loaded. I can see that I have a standard deviation of 15.75, which is correct.